This year is really going to push a lot of people out of their comfort zone to finally take action where there's been fear to take action. No more dragging your feet. This is the kind of year that I'm telling people, no more talking the talk. Time to walk the walk now. The answer is not going to come from that person there. It's going to come from within.
From To Be Magnetic, this is the Expanded Podcast with your host, Lacey Phillips.
And your host, Jessica Gill.
As the leading destination for neural manifestation, we dispel the woo-woo in order to help you create real, tangible results based on neuroplasticity, psychology, epigenetics, and energetics. Our goal is to normalize the practice of manifestation and empower you to get into the driver's seat of your life in order to manifest the experiences, relationships, and things that most align with your authenticity. And by pressing play, the process begins.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Expanded. Jessica here. I am going to jump straight into it today. We have an action-packed episode on the biggest astrological shifts this year and a step-by-step guide of where it will impact you in your chart. We have on Asya Rose. She's a TBM member. She's been a process guest before, and she's an incredible astrologer. She is really helping us break down the connection between where we're getting tested in the astrological themes and what that means for our manifestation practice. So if you are near a computer, if you have your birth chart handy, we're going to tell you websites that are linked in the show notes as well, where you can go and see where these are going to hit your exact chart and where you become your own astrology reader in this episode. We wanted to make your little personalized guide of how to move through all of this energy, because I'm not going to lie, once you start looking at the patterns and what's coming through with all of the astrology, you might be mind blown that it's all pointing to a very similar theme or a test or a trigger that you have been being asked to uplevel in. And now's the time to get ahead of that, know that energy is coming up, and know it's coming up for your highest good to transform it. One other quick announcement, we have a survey going out. So if you are a Pathway member, if you've done the Authenticity Challenge, if you want to share about your experience, any manifestations that have come through, any things that you like, didn't like, we're starting to craft our mid-year challenge right now. We already are getting downloads of what the theme is going to be, just seeing what's coming up for everyone. But in terms of formatting, how can we best support you? So put all of that info in that survey, and we're so excited to craft the next challenge for you. And don't worry, the Authenticity Challenge is sticking around. If you want to make that into a permanent workshop, also make sure to do the survey and check the box that you want it to stay permanently, and then that can be an option for you guys as well. Okay, let's jump into the episode.
And now, a word from our partners.
I'm sure you've heard of Armra colostrum by now. It is everywhere, and for good reason. It has thousands of benefits. Tens of thousands of people are reporting life-changing stories and shifts to their health with it. Strengthened immunity, fortified gut health, ignited metabolism, vitalized hair growth, enhanced skin radiance, performance and recovery enhancement. The list goes on and on. And at first I was a little skeptical, like, where has this bioactive whole food been my entire life? How have I not heard of this yet? And then I realized I had. When one of my best friends first had her baby, I remember she was telling me about the colostrum that her body produced. This is actually the first milk that all mammals produce. It's the first nutrition we receive in life, and it contains all the nutrients in your body you need in order to thrive. So Armra colostrum is just harnessing the power of humans' original bioactive food. It hosts protective antibodies, whole food prebiotics, strengthening peptides, free amino acids, trace minerals, hemoglobins, tissue growth factors, antioxidant adaptogens, mitochondrial regenerators. The list goes on and on. Armra colostrum is sustainably sourced from grass-fed cows on family-owned dairy farms throughout the U.S., utilizing an overflow of colostrum, ensuring that the calves' needs always come first and only the surplus waste is collected and then upcycled. And I would say Armor Colostrum is one of my top products I cannot live without. I have seen such a shift in my immunity, my digestion, my ability to handle foods that may be inflammatory or irritating to my stomach or gut lining. It has been game changer on so many different fronts, and I notice a massive difference when I'm regularly taking it versus not. I like to take 4 scoops per day. I spread them out throughout the day. You can take them all at once in the morning. It supports me on so many different levels. And good news is that we have an incredible offer for our audience to receive 15% off your first order of Armor Colostrum. So go to tryarmra.com/TBM. That's TRYARMRA.com/TBM, or enter TBM at checkout to get 15% off your first order. Try it today. I promise you will not regret it.
All right, on to the episode.
I'm so excited to have Asya back on the podcast today. We had a poll at the top of the year of what astrologers you guys wanted to hear from this year, and Asya was literally on the top of that list, like one of the top astrologers that you guys recommended. I think a lot of you have probably had readings with you at this point, but I want to take a moment of reflection because you've been on the process. You've worked through the TBM work. We've been accountability buddies. You've been doing this stuff with the brand and with us for years. And it's so cool to think about your journey through this and how full circle it is that you have come into your purpose and your gifts and your expertise and are thriving as an astrologer now, and how that whole journey came to be. I know this is not a process. We're going to hear about astrology and how it's going to impact all of you guys, but I just wanted to give a little shout out there.
Oh, thank you, Jessica. Well, I mean, obviously this work is a big part of that for a reason. And I'm just really, really excited to be back and to talk all things astrology and energy this time. So thank you for having me back.
We have a big year. You guys have been hearing us talk about the stripping, the transformation, the preparation to what's to come. And we really wanted to give you very, very practical tools on how to work with your astrology, where you might be tested, where you may be triggered, and how to navigate that. So if you guys are listening to this on the go, maybe listen to the episode once and then pull this up after when you're home and go through it. Or if you're near your computer or on your phone, I would go to astro-charts.com. We'll link it in the show notes, and put in your free birth chart. Or you can go to astro-seek.com and click the free birth chart calculator. And basically when you go through, you're going to put in your birth time and all of that information, especially if you're a vet in astrology, you already know this stuff, but put in all of your birth time. And then the things you're going to look for is, if you are on astrocharts.com, you're going to look at the top section that says planets and note any planetary alignments. We're going to talk about that soon. And then you're going to look at the bottom half there where it says houses. Houses is probably going to be the primary thing we're going to look at here, but there are going to be a lot of big transits. And in those transits, they will impact you depending upon what house they're in. So Asya can break it all down for us. What else? Did I do that correctly?
Yeah, you did a great job. Thank you, Beth. I will just give a little bit more context here. So houses is a term in astrology that we use for subjects or topics or areas of your life. So when you look up your birth chart, it looks like a wheel. I'm originally an East Coaster like you, so I like to say that it looks like a pizza pie with 12 different slices. And each slice or house in astrology, what we call a house, is a subject or a topic or area of your life. So if you look at like a certain house, it will say, oh, this deals with relationships and partnerships. Oh, this house deals with my career, or this slice deals with my home, or this slice deals with my health, and so on and so forth. So when you go look at your chart and we talk about some of these planetary shifts today, you can look at which sign is this in, which house does it affect. Oh, so this is the shift that Asya talked about. It's going to affect my career. Oh, this is the shift that Asya talked about. It's going to affect my friendships in my life, and so on and so forth.
Okay, so first major shift coming up. When is it happening? What is it? And what should we prepare for?
Really quickly, I just want to mention one thing, and just because I know this is airing in March, and I would I have to make sure I mention this. March is going to be one of those really big action-packed astrological months. It's starting with a Venus retrograde. Venus retrograde is starting from March 1st to April 12th. The reason why this is important, and I won't spend a ton of time talking about this because there's way more stuff to talk about, is because Venus is the planet of love, values, relationships, how we look at relationships, how we value ourselves, how we value partnership and relationships. And she normally likes to move forward. And so now she's going to be forced to move backwards and do a lot of reflecting and integrating and processing. What relationships do I value? How do I value myself? Am I getting my needs met in relationships and partnerships? So because of that, we're going to see a lot of breakups probably manifest, as well as exes trying to come back out from the woodwork. So this, for the TBMers here that are listening, right? This could be a lot of tests showing up with exes trying to come back into your world. She's going to be doing this for 6 weeks. So I always say with Venus retrogrades, be careful what you hear and be careful with what shows up. Retrogrades are times for reflection and review. They're times for closure. They're times for clarity. They're not times for reconciliation. So this is like the ultimate, if we're doing, TBM terminology here, this is like the ultimate test of a test, because it's not just that your ex tries to come back, it's that your ex tries to come back and then tells you what you've always wanted to hear them say. So it's like, but have you actually changed? Have you actually, are you actually a different person? And so we're going to be tempted a lot with reflecting on relationships and trying to romanticize the past a bit.
So would this also impact someone if they have, like, for example, I have Venus in my 7th house. Would that impact the theme of the 7th house as well?
A little bit, yes. But you also want to look at where Aries is in your chart and Pisces. Okay, because Venus, she's retrograding, she's starting in the sign of Aries, and then she's moving backwards into the sign of Pisces. So in the beginning in Aries, Venus in Aries likes to take action, right? She likes movement, but then in Pisces, it's more about reflecting and integrating and processing. So people may initially during this transit want to impulsively take action, which we'll spend a lot of time talking about later in this episode, because Aries is very action-oriented, and a lot of the planetary shifts that are happening this year are in this action-oriented sign. But then Pisces is about processing, wait, was that the right action? The general theme is we're going to be forced to take a lot of action this year that we've been dragging our feet on. So this year in general, a lot of things that have been out of alignment are going to be very obvious. There's going to be a lot of illumination, a lot of revealing what is not in alignment or what we thought have been in alignment, but it's actually not. And it's really going to force us to finally take action on things. So the people that have been in jobs and they're like, I'm really miserable here, I'm getting abused at work every day, or they're in a relationship, they're like, I'm not quite ready to leave yet. Like I don't want to be alone. I have a fear of being alone. I don't know what's going to happen on the other side of this. This year is really going to push a lot of people out of their comfort zone to finally take action where there's been fear to take action. The challenge with this is that Aries is an impulsive sign. So a lot of this energy may be forcing some people to take impulsive, reactive action, and they may not realize that they think, oh, I'm taking action, so it should be a good thing. But you want to make sure you're taking aligned action. You want to make sure you're taking action towards your spiritual purpose, towards a path that actually is right and aligned for you, not just action in general. So not all action is good action. And that's kind of the dichotomy of this year of like, well, I'm finally doing something about it. Yeah, but are you doing the right thing about it? And this is also going to be reflected in the first part of the year with this, or the first part of March with this Venus retrograde of like really reflecting on, is this partnership aligned still, or was this past partnership aligned? And some people may take some impulsive action, but is it the right action?
Okay, I want to just give a tool or a thought for anyone here too, because I got like a small taste of this energy in the top of January, and you have to really get true to yourself. When you feel like the rug's getting pulled out from under you, when you feel pressured to take that action, you're like, well, we can't stay here. We have to take action and do something. There is that fight or flight response that kicks in that's almost like, this is smart and strategic. Let me take action like this. And it may be smart and strategic, but if you are doing it from that ungrounded place, if you are doing it like Asya's saying, reactively, that's where you're going to get in a little bit of a mess. if you can say, okay, I know I need to take action. Let me focus on regulating. Let me take that pause. Maybe I need to take, a mental health day from work and just reground and figure out what my truth is. That's why that strip DI is so important, because it's like, remove everything from your life. Who are you at your core? What action would that person take? Then you're going to get that clarity of, oh, okay, I see the action I need to take. It's actually this. It's not the fear voice. It's not the strategy necessarily voice. It's the grounded, embodied sense of self. And we're going to be asked to toggle between that fear state and our grounded self a lot this year.
Yeah. But that's why a lot of the themes, especially with the astrology, is also that mental health is going to be a huge priority. We as a society have spent so much time and effort and energy on making our physical health a priority. Now, this year is really going to emphasize where, on a bigger caliber than it has thus far, where when we don't take our mental health and our spiritual health and we don't make that a priority, it's going to start affecting our physical health, right? So when it's time to finally take action, because a lot of the planets are going to be wanting us to move forward. No more dragging your feet. This is the kind of year that I'm telling people, no more talking the talk. Time to walk the walk now. And for a lot of people, that is going to bring up a lot of fear, because they're like, oh, I can't hide behind this anymore. I can't hide behind this anymore. Now I have to do something about it. But are you being reactive, or is it aligned? The only way you're going to be able to discern the difference is if you're getting quiet within yourself. The answer is not going to come from that person there. The answer is not going to come from that person there. The answer is not going to come from somebody on social media. It's not even going to come from our politicians. It's going to come from within. And that is another key theme of this year, is empowerment. Where have we given our power away to this person, to that person, to this politician, to that area, to that corporation, to this, to this, to this, because we think they're going to make all the right decisions for us, and we need to take our power back. We're starting to see this already in the news and the political climate as well. There are people that are blending in on all sides, regardless of whether you're left, right, red, blue. They're all getting together and saying, well, who's in power here? Because the power is in numbers. But we've been fed to believe that the power is in this one person because we've elected them. But the power is within us. And that's what the astrology this year is really going to illuminate more than ever. And so the fear comes up over and over and over again. Well, if the power is within me, that means I have to be the one to make the change.
Oh, so good. Okay, so now into the big shifts.
Okay, so we also have 2 eclipse seasons that are happening this year. The first one's going to be in March, and the next one's going to be in September, and we'll get to those in a second. But the reason why 2025 is going to be a historic year, and I've been using the word historic on purpose, is going to be very disruptive. There's going to be a lot of changes, and I'm not saying this to cause fear in anybody. I'm just letting everyone know so that they're prepared. A lot of the shifts that happen this year are going to change history over time. The initial implementation of systems and things that we're going to start seeing come to play that are going to make a huge impact on where we're going progressively as a society later. So every single outer planet is going to shift signs this year. It's not just that it's shifting signs, it's also shifting elements. So the elemental shifts are big. So things are going to also move a lot quicker. 1 month, things are going to get really intense. And the next month, it's going to, okay, we'll get a little bit of a break or a little bit of processing. Then the next month, really intense. And the next month, okay, a break, processing. And then next month, really intense. It's like every other month, shit is happening. And a lot of my clients right now, they're saying, well, I'm really frustrated. There's like, this isn't moving, and that's not moving, and that's not moving, and this isn't happening. And I'm like, guys, I know we feel the momentum coming, and we want stuff to shift and change, which it will this year. This is the year that things will shift and change. But take the pauses when you can get them. Take the breaks when they come, because there's going to be moments this year, every other month, where people are going to be reaching out to me. They're going to be like, Asha, when are things going to slow down? It's a lot. It's too much. It's too intense. And I'm like, when we're in the pause moments, take them. So one of those big planetary shifts that's going to start happening is Neptune. That's happening at the end of March 30th to be exact. This one is interesting. Neptune is the planet of fantasy and illusions and imagination and possibility, right? It's also the planet of distortion of reality and disillusionment. and brings a fog. So you don't quite see things clearly wherever Neptune sits. Neptune has previously been in the sign of Pisces since 2011. So it's been really amplifying things related to Pisces, right? Like spirituality, intuition. That's why we've seen a lot of growth in spiritual-based businesses since Neptune has been there since 2011. But Neptune moving into Aries is very much that energy of no more talking the talk. It's time to walk the walk. The problem with Neptune is it's not just that it causes an illusion, it also causes disillusion. This is kind of like that Neptunian distortion of reality of like, you're falling for a fantasy of something, but the reality may look very different. And when Neptune moves into Aries, Aries is about individuality. Aries is the warrior. Aries is the hero. Aries is about taking action. Aries is about pioneering, trailblazing. It's also ruled by Mars, the god of war. So we are going to see a lot of intensity, but also like glorification of like heroism, right? Glorification of being a warrior. You want to be a warrior. You want to be a hero. You want to be a fighter. Let's revolt. Let's fight. Which sounds great in theory because Neptune's going to sell you on the fantasy of this. But the reality is very different. It's very intense. It's very tragic. So this is kind of like the energetic shift that we're stepping into of understanding like this adds to the whole distortion of reality we've been in. And we've seen this even in technology, right? With AI, we don't even know what's real and what isn't real. This distortion of reality is also going to continue to increase. And I'm not saying this to, again, cause fear in everybody. I'm just letting everyone know, like, things are going to get more chaotic. They are going to get a little bit messy. It's kind of like an analogy or a metaphor that is kind of like birth. Because Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac. Aries is the first. So a lot of the planetary shifts are moving from Pisces to Aries. It's endings of the last sign and moving into the first sign. So rebirthing lots of new things. And what is birth? Birth is messy. Birth is painful. Birth is necessary, right? On the other side of the birth is something really beautiful, right? Like you've birthed a new human being. Like that is a beautiful thing. But what it takes to get there, the process of birth is very uncomfortable. And that's what a lot of these like Piscean to Aries shifts are going to feel like.
The one thing that comes up for me there too, okay, so what do we do about this energy? Discernment seems to be a huge theme with this. So as this is, and mind you, these are things that are happening collectively. We're going to talk about what house it's going to impact for you guys and where you can look it up, how it will impact you. But collectively, this will be a theme. So if we know, okay, collectively, there will be distortion, there might be glorification of like, yes, we've got this, march forward in this way. Just take a moment to check in with your truth. Again, to that first thing we said, we can't take this action before we can get with our center. Lacey said this in the channeling, connecting to our center, our communication to ourselves is going to be the most important thing this year of how we can navigate. So instead of just ingesting everything that's coming at us, taking everything for face value and saying, well, I saw that must be true and this must be true and this, is going to make this happen. Take that pause and say, whew, okay, despite all of this, where is my center? What is my truth? Because that is the thing that is going to get us in alignment and in a good spot post this birthing process. Don't let the distortion be a distraction because everyone has a very unique, very important purpose to be on this planet at this time. So don't let all of this stuff distract you from that aligned action that you need to take on an individual level this year. I feel like that is so important.
Yeah. Thank you, 100%. And a lot of that is I'm gonna go into with the South Node being in Virgo and the perfectionism part of that as well. Anything out of alignment this year is going to be very obvious. So where we've been able to, again, stay in a job that we've been miserable in for a long time, this year it's gonna become so unbearable that you have to leave. If you've been able to think you can make this toxic relationship work, it's going to become so unbearable that you're going to have to leave because it's not actually good for you. It's not actually healthy for you. It's like when you go to the doctor and they finally tell you, okay, you've really overdone it with the sugar. Now it's time to take this seriously. Like this is that kind of year in all aspects of, okay, it's time to really take this seriously now. What is working and also what isn't working.
Where can they look on their chart where this Neptune Aries transit at the end of March is going to hit them?
So Neptune was previously in Pisces since 2011. It's going to move out of Pisces and it's going to move into Aries. So you want to look at where Aries is in your birth chart when you look up your chart online. You also want to look at what house Aries falls into, which subject or topic or area of your life. We're also going to have an eclipse there at the end of March, so a lot of activation there. We have this Venus retrograde going through Aries throughout all of March. We have an eclipse there at the end of March. Then Neptune moves into Aries in March. So lots of activity in Aries in general throughout this time period right now specifically. So you want to look at where Aries is in your chart because there's so much back to back happening in Aries. You also want to look to see if you have any personal placements or planets in Aries. So like if you have an Aries moon or an Aries sun or Aries rising, or if you have natal Venus in Aries, or if you have like an Aries north node or south node, you're also going to feel this. So we're all going to feel this on a collective level, but some people may feel this at like 50%. If you have personal placements there, like a personal planet, you may feel this at 100%.
Can we do a quick, just like one sentence overview on themes of what each house thematically is? And then I will also invite people to, you can chat GBT it, you can check out on the AstroSeek, you can book a session with Asya to get a real deep dive. There are other ways to look into these houses, but just so you have a jumping off point in this conversation.
Okay, so first house is usually the house of you. It's where your chart begins. It's where you have your rising sign. It's the house of your body, your image, how you show up in the world, essentially the house of self-identity. Second house is usually the house of money, finances, resources, possessions. It's also the house of values. What you value, how you value yourself. That's why a lot of self-worth stuff also comes up in the second house. Third house is the house of communication, how you think, how you speak, how you process information, and also how you share knowledge and information. Fourth house is home, family, roots, childhood upbringing. So it's like the roots and the foundations of your chart, how you were brought up, and also the foundation of your home now. Fifth house is the house of creativity, self-expression through creative pursuits, joy, hobbies. It's also the house of like romance and dating, and also the house of children. Sixth house is the house of health, routines, work. So there's two houses related to work. The 10th house is like big picture career stuff, which we'll get to in a second. 6th house is like the day-to-day effort that you put into your career to like get the job done. 7th house is partnerships and relationships and marriage. 8th house is other people's money, other people's finances, other people's resources, and how it directly affects you. It's also the house of death and rebirth, life and death, transformation, sometimes sex and taboo things related to sex. That's a loaded house. I know there's a lot in that one. 9th house is the house of higher education, knowledge, learning, philosophy, beliefs, belief systems. So sometimes when people have transits going through the 9th house, they'll like suddenly change religions, or they'll change a belief system they've had their whole life. Things like that can also manifest. It's also the house of long distance travel. 10th house is the house of career, big picture career stuff, right? Career, reputation, public image, and legacy. 10th house is like legacy stuff, like what you're leaving behind. 11th house is friendships, community, social groups, social circles, basically the support systems you have around you in your life, your friendships, who you're spending your time with. 12th house is the house of the hidden. This is what I like to call our blind spot house. This is like all the shit we carry with us that we don't even realize we carry with us. Fears, self-sabotage, phobias. But it's also the house of the other stuff that we carry with us that we don't realize that we do, which is intuition, our intuitive gifts, right? Our psychic gifts, dream work. Again, our blind spot.
First of all, that was an amazing condensed breakdown of all of the houses. You said that so eloquently. I was like, wow, she's good. But I want to give an example for anyone if they're like, okay, now I'm hearing the theme. I know that Aries, this planet of action and like this warrior energy is coming in. Okay, cool. I'm starting to see how that plays into my theme. I would start to think about what pings or like little pulls have you been getting in relation to the theme. First, think on that, right? So for me, this theme of public image and legacy and all these things, I have been getting pings for upwards of a year launching a YouTube, of showing up more on social, of doing more creative things, like going back to my roots of making videos and creative storytelling and all of those things, even just sharing spiritually stuff. And I have been dragging my feet. So I am interested to see how this transpires through March, where now I have this Aries activator there that's going to be encouraging aligned action. However, I'm going to make sure to take that pause of, am I just acting because I just want to get something out and say that I did it? Or am I going to ground in and be like, what is the truest version that I want to express right now? And for the distortion element of Neptune, Asya, if someone is trying to discern their action being aligned through this, how would they be able to know, like, here's the dilemma I'm thinking people might be having. If they're like, okay, I've been getting a ping to do this, could the distortion present as, oh, well, that's just ego? I'm wondering what advice we can give them on like how they can discern how the distortion would show up.
That's a great question. This is why the mental health aspect or the spirituality aspect or the intuitive aspect is so important. You're not going to be able to discern through the distortion if you're looking for advice everywhere else. If the distortion in your head is like, you can't do that because you're older than everyone else, or you can't do that because you started too late, there's too many YouTubers out there, or you can't do this or you can't do that because you have been getting these pings for a year and now you still haven't taken action on them, you might as well not do it at this point. That's also a distorted reality that you're feeding yourself. You think that you can't get it done, but you actually can. Because intuitively inside your gut, you're thinking, well, I just feel so pulled to do this. Mm-hmm. That's you following the aligned action. The distorted action is you...
The layers of programming that's like
how
the
layers of programming,
where.
And also what you're absorbing on social media. If you're like, intuitively, I want to release a video talking about my house. And I want to talk about my decoration. And I want to talk about this and my interior design and all these other things. And then you go on social media and everyone's like, your Instagram is feeding you this algorithm of, I don't want to see your house anymore. No one wants to see your home and no one wants to see this and enough this and enough that. Then that's also adding to your distortion of you talking yourself out of taking aligned action or intuitive action. But intuitively, I want to make this video around my home, but I'm seeing all these videos on social media that are telling me, no one wants to see this.
Yes, yes.
I always want to say, be careful what you're absorbing and who you're listening to, right? Because this is very Neptune and Aries. Like, you don't know who to listen to. You don't know who to trust. But it's not about listening to someone else. It's about following your gut. All of the planetary shifts this year, that is the key theme here. Where are you still not listening to yourself? Where are you still giving your power away? Because Instagram told you you can't post a video about a house. Instagram, take my power. I won't do this. Social media says you shouldn't talk about this. Okay, I'm giving my power away to social media. I'm not going to do this. Where are we giving our power away based on what we're absorbing and what we're listening to? And we're not actually taking it back for ourselves, because the people that are empowered are the ones that usually take the action.
The other thing I'm kind of picking up on too is I feel like the distortion might, and there might be multiple ways than this, but I'm seeing, especially when it comes to taking aligned action, distortion can come in through two lenses. One, it's the limiting beliefs that we take in about why we can't do what we're doing. But the other is the ego. And so many people confuse like, well, I don't want to do this from ego. I don't want to do this from external validation, but they're actually just creating another limiting belief for themselves. The way that you're going to know it's ego or external validation is if your sole interest in doing it is to impress or to get other people to be like, wow, look what they did, or wow, they finally took that action or did that thing, or now they have that shiny carrot thing or whatever. If there's any sort of programming of, I can't wait till they see X, or I'll really made it when they see X, there's ego. But if your gut is like how I feel about the video is, I just want to make it. I want to be a little creator and a tinkerer and I want to edit again. The process of doing it feels very exciting.
I can't wait for you to watch this back. The way you lit up when you're like, I'm just so excited. I want to film this video. That's coming from an intuitive place, not the opposite. You can see it in your face the way you just talked about it.
I mean, maybe that's a good tip for people to get on a FaceTime with your accountability buddy and explain the aligned action you want to take and have them clock. Do you genuinely look like you turned on a light switch inside when you're talking about it? And if so, that is aligned. There is no distortion there. Just don't listen to all the limiting beliefs coming through.
Yeah. Because there will be a lot of them, because the South Node is in Virgo right now. And the Virgo South Node is very much about, so this is not related to our own personal North Node and South Node in our personal birth chart, which is different for everybody, right? But in the sky right now, the North Node is in Pisces and the South Node is in Virgo. And the South Node is kind of what we need to be shedding collectively right now, what we've outgrown, but we don't realize we've outgrown it. And the North Node is more of the energy we need to be stepping towards. So for those of you, I want you to look up where Virgo is in your birth chart. I want you to look up which house it's in, and if you have any personal placements in Virgo, whether you have a North Node or South Node in Virgo, whether you have a Virgo Sun, Virgo Moon, Virgo Rising, any Virgo placements, you're going to feel this a little bit more than other people. We're all going to feel this, but you guys will feel it a little bit more if you have personal placements in Virgo. But Virgo is the perfectionist. It wants efficiency, it wants things done right. So it will perfect to the point of, I like to say that a lot of certain Virgo placements is like analysis paralysis, right? Where you're so busy analyzing and perfecting that you just 5 years has gone by, you still haven't taken action on anything. And with the South Node currently passing through here right now, it's really amplifying. And for the people that are looking up their charts, when you look up your house where Virgo is in your chart, what have you outgrown here? What is the limiting belief? What is the perfectionism habit? What is the need to control and hold on? Because South Node in Virgo is the ultimate control freak because it doesn't trust that things will still work out. It's like the ultimate planner and organizer. I need to plan because I don't trust that things will still work out if I don't plan for it. So what have you outgrown here? What needs to be released and purged? Because the North Node in Pisces is about believing in the unseen, believing in the unknown.
Okay, just to give you guys a little taste, a little example of this. So I have Virgo in my third house, which Asya said was communication.
Yeah.
So how have forms of communication where maybe I've limited myself or I've only expressed one version of self, you can see the through line. You can see how if this is where the perfectionism comes in this Virgo section of your chart, that is being asked to shift so you can take the action in the other part of your chart. So if I'm refining my communication and allowing to show different sides of myself and communicate in a way that feels more embodied and authentic, then that's going to impact this legacy thing with YouTube or whatever video I decide to go there.
Releasing the perfectionism of how you're speaking even, right? And not worrying about what is the right thing to say or the right way to say it, because that is also very Virgo South Node. Because North Node and Pisces, like, well, you just need to share the wisdom and the knowledge from an intuitive place. Doesn't matter if you're saying it the right way.
Yep. You're just hitting on all my limiting beliefs here, girl.
Well, good thing you have tools to unpack those, right?
Yes. Have you noticed any early signs of aging, maybe worse sleep, lower energy, stiffer joints? One thing that I've been really focused on in the past few years is my longevity. How do I make my body feel stronger and healthier longer and well into adulthood? I was recently introduced to Dr. Stephanie Van Watson, who is the founder of Fatty 15. She made a remarkable discovery when she was studying how dolphins age. One group of dolphins was aging significantly better, had significantly better aging growth factors, brain health, immune health, and were living much longer. And the difference was their levels of C15. Those who were not aging as well were deficient in C15, causing cellular fragility syndrome, which is a nutritional deficiency that accelerates aging by weakening the cells. After much research, Stephanie realized that this also translates to humans, and C15 is a vital nutrient we need for our longevity, but so many people are unknowingly deficient. C15 is known as a geroprotector, which means it can improve cognitive function, enhance immune response, promote tissue regeneration, and reduce the impact of lifestyle factors that accelerate aging. Meaning it actually starts to slow down biological aging by strengthening the cell membranes by 80%. Right now, as many as 1 in 3 people have low levels of C15. Without enough C15, cells become fragile and age significantly faster, making us prone to these age-related conditions. So Stephanie created Fatty 15. It is 100% pure, bioavailable, patented C15, free from preservatives, vegan, and built to support your cells better than the omega-3s or fish oils with 3 times more cellular benefits. In clinical studies, 72% of users reported experiencing deeper sleep, better mood, healthier joints, and noticeable improvement in their energy within 16 weeks. I personally, since I've started taking it, noticed my anxiety levels go down, my sleep increase, and my overall energy get better and better. Fatty 15 is on a mission to optimize your C15 levels and help you live longer, stronger, and healthier. You can get an additional 15% off their 90-day subscription starter kit by going to fatty15.com/TBM and using code TBM, all caps, at checkout. Again, that's code TBM at checkout, and go to the show notes to find the link. Okay, so what's the next big shift people should check on their charts for?
Okay, the next big shift is Saturn. Saturn switches signs around every 2.5 years or so, give or take. That is also moving out of Pisces into the sign of Aries. That is happening May 24th. By the way, for the record, these planetary shifts, we're just getting a taste of them this year. So Neptune's going to switch signs, and then in October, it's going to go backwards back into Pisces. Saturn is going to switch signs in May, and then in September, it's going to go back into Pisces. So it's almost like we're getting a taste of the energy, but we're not fully diving into the deep end of the pool yet, right? We're just like testing the temperature. So a lot of the energetic shifts are going to be like about initiating this new beginning, initiating these rebirths or birth, like I talked about earlier, initiation, but it's not going to be fully solidified until next year. So we're still kind of back and forth between two signs and two elements and two energies. So for a lot of people, it may feel like whiplash this year. This is going to add a little bit to the chaotic disruption, because you're like, I don't understand. Are we doing this now? Okay, we're going to do this. And then suddenly you're back to tying up loose ends with the past again. So we're still kind of teetering between the two. So just keep that in mind. Whiplash is like the only way I could really describe it.
What are the themes of Saturn? So everybody knows where Aries is in their houses. What are the themes that Saturn's going to bring to that shift?
So Saturn brings limitations. It brings restriction. It brings lots of lessons, tests in TBM terminology. But most importantly, I think Saturn personally gets a bad rep in astrology. I think Saturn builds resiliency because it wants us to be foundationally strong in this area of our life. So it brings delays, it brings challenges because it wants you to grow resiliency here so that you're strong when it leaves. So Saturn takes, this is why it's called a Saturn return. It takes 27 to 30 years to do a full orbit or full cycle, right? So essentially what Saturn is saying is he's going to come in and he's going to say, hey, I'm going to challenge you here. I'm going to limit you a little bit here. I'm going to cause some delays here. I'm going to restrict you a little bit, right? Like the teacher. And the reason for that is because Saturn's saying, I want you to build so much resiliency here so that when I leave, your foundation is so strong, I don't have to worry about this area of your life for another 30 years until I come back again. So that's the way I interpret Saturn, right? And how he works is like, when he's there, you're like, what is going on? I just feel like I'm constantly walking through mud. Wherever Saturn sits in our chart at any given point in time, it makes you feel like you have to work twice as hard for the same result. So it gets really sometimes discouraging because you're like, oh my God, I just feel like I'm working really hard at this and like things are just not moving the way it is for other people. It's not on purpose. It's to build, again, resiliency. And so what's interesting about this is before Saturn moves in there, Neptune's going to start to amplify all this Aries energy. We're going to have an eclipse in Aries. So it's almost like March is going to be like this flame abrupt. And the reason why I use the word flame is because Aries is a fire sign. And then from March, the end of March to April, most of May, it's like the flame is going. And then boom, Saturn moves into Aries and he's like, okay, let's dim this flame a little. So let's restrict this because Aries is a sign, and I know some Aries people are going to be upset by this or triggered by it. Aries is a sign that's really good at starting things. It's not good at follow through or finishing things. So Saturn in Aries is going to be like, or just any planet in Aries, like suddenly it starts the flame and it blazes the flame. And then Aries is like, well, I don't need to keep it going. Like, that's your job. The next sign afterwards is Taurus, and Taurus's job is to keep the flame going, right? That's why they're like, there's this like tenacity and stubbornness with Taurus energy because their job is to keep the flame going afterwards. Aries is like, I've done my job. I started the flame. I can walk away now. That's kind of the energy that we're going to be feeling in like March, April, May. And then Saturn's going to move in like, okay, enough with the flame starting everywhere. Like, let's just reel this in a little bit.
I love this too because, okay, if you guys are thinking about what is that aligned action that you need to take of where Aries hits you in your houses. And if you want to go back and listen to the house section, we'll have the timestamp of where that is in the show notes so you can keep going, referring back to it. But where that aligned action is, okay, how do we get rid of those limiting beliefs? How do we get rid of those distortions? Then we're going to have a lot of momentum to take that aligned action. And then note, if things start to slow down, do not, I don't know why I want to use the word retreat, but do not give up. Do not lose hope. It does not mean you're in the wrong path. It doesn't mean you have taken the wrong step. It doesn't mean this isn't for you. If you took that aligned action from a true soulful place and then things slow down in May, almost see this as like, cool, now I am in the training ground for my 10,000 hours. Like the Malcolm Gladwell thing. Now, how can I've already started it. I have some momentum. How can I make this sector of my life? How can I not perfect, but become an expert in it by trying and stumbling and trying and stumbling and, all the different iterations. It's trying to make you better at it is really what I'm hearing from you, Asya.
Yeah. Thank you for saying, because Saturn is actually mastery. You can't master something overnight. It takes time. It takes diligence. It takes trial, error, over and over and over again. And that's how Saturn feels, right? Like, how can you master this?
Okay, so don't lose hope when Saturn hits. It's really just the training ground. It's how can you make this better and better and better.
And the other thing, one last thing I want to say about Saturn is because Saturn causes restriction, a lot of times people think if you're hitting a wall, this is what it's going to feel when Saturn moves in. Sometimes it'll feel like suddenly you're hitting a wall. People are like, oh, I guess I'm doing the wrong thing. I'll just turn around and go back. And I always say in sessions with clients, I'm like, if where Saturn's sitting, you feel like you're hitting a wall, maybe the lesson is to go around the wall, not to go through the wall like you were planning. Maybe you saw that you need to climb this mountain, but you thought you were going to climb it from the front, and now Saturn's like, that's not going to work. You still need to climb this, but you got to go around the back of the mountain instead. Maybe sometimes shift the perspective of like, what are you missing? Does something need to be pivoted or tweaked here, or does your approach need to change? It doesn't mean you're doing the wrong thing, but maybe the approach to it needs to shift.
Yes. And also thinking back to the theme of this year is removing anything that is not in alignment. Okay, maybe the route you were going is how the world used to operate. And now the world is going to operate very differently. And so you have to think very differently to be a part of that shift and that change, even on a collective scale. So it's really like visionary, big picture sort of thinking of how can I do this differently? How can I think about this problem? The problem is not unsolvable, but I just need to figure out a different way to look at the problem.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, next big shift. What do we got?
Next big shift is happening in July. Remember I said every other month something is happening. That is happening on July 7th, and Uranus, however you guys choose to pronounce that planet, Uranus is switching signs for the first time since 2018, and it's moving into Gemini. And this is a big deal because Uranus is a disruptor. He's a planet of liberation, rebellion, freedom, revolution, innovation, flashes of insight, progress. When we go through a Uranus opposition in our life, in astrology it's called the Uranus opposition. In reality it's called the midlife crisis. And that's why people do very Uranian-like things, dye their hair blue and like get a sports car and stuff. They do very like rebellious, freedom-esque rebelling things. But it's not rebellion for the sake of rebellion. It's like, what have you been shackled to your whole life? Now I'm breaking free from these shackles. And that's how, even the way this, if you look at even astronomy and NASA, right? Even the way this planet orbits the sun is different than all of the other planets. All the planets like orbit horizontally. This planet orbits on its side, like up and down. So this is just so you get an idea of this planet's energy. He's like, fuck all you other planets. I'm going to do my own thing. I'm going to rebel against the way that we orbit.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's this planet. Like it doesn't even orbit around the sun the way all the other planets orbit.
Yeah.
That's what I mean by this like rebelling, liberating, revolutionary energy. So you have this like, I always say with Uranus, it's an unpredictable planet. So we're trying to predict the unpredictable. And it's moving from Taurus, which is like a grounded, practical earth sign, into Gemini, which is very focused on ideas, information, technology, communication, intellectualization, right? Like information. It also is focused on money and currency. So there's going to be a lot of shifts collectively around like money themes, currency, how we absorb knowledge, how we absorb information, education systems. A lot of this disruptor planet is coming in to disrupt and shift all of these different industries. It also rules travel, and technology as well. We're moving into an era where like things are going to look very different. So remember when I said earlier in this recording, take the breaths, take the pauses when you can get them. When Uranus moves into Gemini, things are just going to start happening like quick again as well. Like information here, information here, information here. And Gemini is also a sign that's based on duality, right? It's the twins. There's two sides of every coin. So the unstabilizing thing about this energy, for lack of a better way of putting it, is because Gemini is so adaptable to changes, it's going to change here, and then it's like, I don't know if I want to do that. It's going to change here, I don't know if I want to do that. Then it's going to change here. Maybe we'll try this instead. Maybe. So for the people that are like, just tell me where to go, tell me what to do, and let's stick with this, this may feel a little bit disruptive because you have this planet of liberation, rebellion, revolution, disruption, freedom is moving into an adaptable sign that's comfortable making lots and lots of changes over and over and over again. So why is this important? It's because the changes we see this year may not even be the changes that are going to be set in stone. It doesn't mean that that's what's going to be happening long term. This whole year, there's so much energy around change, and we're really being forced to embrace change, or what we think change feels like or looks like. We have to be adaptable. We have to be able to go with the flow. And for a lot of people, maybe I'm projecting, I'm speaking for myself, but for a lot of us, we're natural control freaks. We like things the way that we like them. Maybe we're okay with change when we can control the change.
I definitely fall into that bucket. And it's a lot this year of having to be like, okay, another thing, like how do we release this? And I think for me, at least, it comes back to that connection to self, that connection to my connection to the divine or universe, whatever you want to call it. And that communication, even having that quick check-in first thing in the morning, like, hey, what's up? Are you okay? How are you feeling? Let's touch in, having that moment, or doing a DI in the morning to just sit with self. I'll even do sometimes the driver's seat DI in the morning and just commune with self and be like, okay, whatever part of me wants to come up and chat, let's have a little meeting. Let's check in, because there is a lot of surrendering that's going to be asked this year of how we've typically operated.
Right. But there's a lot of, like I said earlier, with the birth thing, there's a lot of beauty that can show up on the other side, right? When I said this year is going to be historic, I meant historic. Similar to how 2020 was, where it caused so much tragedy, so much grief, just so much for so many people. There was also an element on the other side of that. I don't know if a lot of people know this, but 2020, there were more millionaires that were formed that year than ever before. I mean, we've all seen that story here and there. I don't know how true it is, right? But of that person who like lost their job and they started dancing on TikTok and suddenly they were like a millionaire within a year. But there are stories of like throughout the change, throughout the chaos, there was growth and there was evolution and there was light on the other side of that. And that's kind of the same thing with like that birth analogy I gave earlier of it's going to be messy, it's going to be painful, but it's going to be necessary. Because the whole point is, again, I'm repeating myself over and over again on purpose, is where have we been giving our power away and where can we take it back? And so that's going to be showing up on like a grander scale of collectively, of like, revolution collectively, and you'll see probably more protests and things like that showing up of like people standing up to other people in positions of power. But you'll also see that on an individual level of like, oh no, you don't get to tell me what I do anymore. That's where we're going. However, how are you doing it? Is it reactive? Is it impulsive? Or is it aligned?
So important to really do it from a place of authenticity and integrity, to be in alignment with your own truth, your own values, and then take that action, because that's where you're going to connect with your manifestations. That's where you're going to alchemize the energy of this year into something that is for your highest good and the ripple effect it's going to have on everyone around you, versus continuing on a cycle of fear or suffering or lack or, whatever is in the other route. heard us talk about our Pathway membership, but what actually is it? It is an all-access membership where you can get every single workshop that we've ever created, all of our deep imaginings, which are our reprogramming audios, to help you manifest. You can access it on the desktop or in the TBM app on your phone directly. We, of course, have our foundational workshops, such as our How to Manifest workshop, which takes you step by step through this neural manifestation process to actually unblock, expand, and take aligned action to connect with your manifestations. Our How to Be Magnetic workshop, our Inner Child and Shadow workshops. And then, of course, we have a workshop if you are in a rut, if you're in a rock bottom, if you're in an up level, perhaps you need to set boundaries. Maybe you want to focus specifically on the block of money or love. It is all in there. And then twice a year as a community, we gather for our challenges. Our challenges are one of the most effective parts of the process because you get accountability. It is really a handheld experience in how to work through whatever the theme of that year's challenge is. And now to my absolute favorite part of our membership, which I think in and of itself would be worth the entire weight of the membership if we just had this alone, our Deep Imagining library. This library encompasses over 60 neural reprogramming audio tracks. They're self-hypnosis tracks that will really support you in any step of this journey. If you're needing calming, nervous system regulation, unblocking with a specific test or trigger, going through a difficult time, processing a big emotion, or maybe you just want reinforcing, how to reinforce those neural pathways of confidence, abundance, self-worth, deservingness, and connection with your dream life. And not only that, if you go to the app, we just launched Deep Imagining playlists where we're grouping different themes of DIs together. So no matter what you're going through, you have something for you. And we're constantly dropping new playlists as well as brand new Deep Imaginings. And if you need more support in your process, you can go to our brand new video series, Channelings with Lacey, where she touches on the exact energetics that are going on right now in manifestation and how it may apply to your life. So obviously, I am a huge fan of this membership. The peace of mind I get from being able to have all the tools I need at my disposal, no matter where I'm at with my life, if shit's hitting the fan, if I'm feeling dysregulated, if I'm needing to come back to my center, if I'm needing to brainstorm or daydream or connect with what my vision for my future is, every single tool is in there to support me. And don't just take my word for it. We have thousands of testimonials of people who have had incredible success stories with these tools. So take the guesswork out of your manifestation process and get real tools that are going to give you real results. For podcast listeners only, you can use code EXPANDED, all caps EXPANDED, for 20% off your first month of the pathway. Join now and have your best year yet. For this Uranus shift that's coming in, this crazy kind of rebellious energy in Gemini, we're looking where Gemini is in our houses or in our chart. What would you say they should do with that energy? So for example, like I have mine in the 12th house, which is limiting beliefs, spirituality, intuition, gifts. So would someone prepare for a rebellious energy coming in? Like, what should they prepare for?
Well, Uranus is like shocking and surprising, so it may even shock you and surprise you how it shows up, right? Okay. So for you, it may be like something shocking comes. I mean, there's many different manifestations of this, right? In the 12th house and specifically, it's like suddenly you think, oh, I've worked through everything, and now suddenly this is coming out of nowhere. Or Uranus going through the 12th, it's also psychic gifts and intuitive stuff. So maybe one day you wake up and you're like, oh my God, I'm channeling something and I have or I'm seeing stuff and I have no idea where this came from, right? That could also be a manifestation of this. It's not always a bad, change is not always bad. The reason why Uranus wants to revolutionize and liberate is because you've been shackled here. So it's going to come in and say, where have you been shackled here? I'm going to come in to disrupt this.
Okay, so really they can prepare for whatever theme it's hitting for your houses or in your chart.
Gemini. Yeah, where
a Gemini is. Think about how you have been shackled by elements of this theme before. What limitations have you had here? And I guess the real call to action is just be open. Be open to what comes through. Be curious to what presents and see, is what's presenting come July 7th and onward going to help free you of some of the limitations that you may have had in that theme in your chart before.
Yeah. And remember, this is the planet of unpredictability, so we're trying to predict the unpredictable.
Yeah, of course.
So the action you need to take is like, don't take any action. Well, specifically for Uranus, it's like, just be open to change in this area of your life, because something, or maybe right now, notice where you're limiting. Wherever Gemini, for the people that are listening or watching, wherever Gemini is in your personal birth chart, notice where have you been limiting yourself here? Or what's been limiting you here? Because Uranus coming in there, he's really going to illuminate where this isn't going to work anymore. Whether it's self-imposed limitations or whether it's external limitations that have been set on you.
Very cool. There are a lot of shifts this year. And I think we really hit on a lot of these themes of the surrender, of connecting to self, of understanding the bigger purpose, the bigger mission we have here on an individual level, on a collective level. Like, are there any other things that you think are really pressing for people to know now?
Yeah, I think, like mass spiritual awakenings is definitely a big theme of this year. It's already been happening. It will continue to happen. I think the irony is, because of all this Aries energy that's going to start to get activated, we're going to be more impulsive to take action, but we need to make sure that we also have patience at the same time and compassion, right? Because the way that people may wake up to spirituality and intuition and all these things can be really abrupt and shocking. And I remember, like, my spiritual awakening happened because I had a lot of trauma. It was very, very uncomfortable and very tragic for me. And I think when you're in this impatient energy, you kind of, for a lot of people, at least I'm seeing this manifest with other people in my life right now, they're like impatient of waiting for other people to just like get on the train or get on the bandwagon or get on this. And I'm like, we need to remember to have compassion for people. That is most important. And patience. Because the energy collectively is going to be pushing us to be more impatient. So naturally, we're going to have less patience. So we want to be reminded to have more patience when our instinct is going to be to have less patience. So that's a really big thing I want to make sure I emphasize, of just because you did something in this timeline and it worked out in this way for you and that happened that way for you, right, does not mean that somebody else it's going to show up in the exact same way or in the same version or the same timeline for them. We also have to have patience and understanding and compassion on other people's journeys and how they're going to get there.
So huge, especially with loved ones, with partners, with kids, with your community. I think that is so, so important to name. And it also makes me think about that theme of surrender, trying to impart the wisdom on there sooner, get them to learn the lesson sooner, to get with it sooner, is us trying to control, not wanting to be in limbo anymore. So how is our relationship to control being asked to shift, being asked to say like, hey, right now, there's such a beautiful scene in Dune when they're in the plane. It's Timothée Chalamet and his mom, and they're in the plane, and the storm is just hitting them so heavy that they literally have to close the wings down and turn off the engine and float, because that's the only way they're going to survive. If they try to control it, if they try to fly through it, if they try to use the engine, that's it. They're done. It'll rip off the things and they'll crash. The only way they can get through the storm is if they just close the wings, turn off the engine, and just pure faith. They're like, I have faith here. I can't see. I don't know how I'm going to get through. I don't know why I'm getting like so moved by this. Love that movie. That's what we're being asked to do on so many levels. How can we just be in pure faith and like really, really trust?
But it's hard to have faith if you've for those people that are listening, you know who you are, right? That you've always planned everything your whole life and it worked out. And now if things are not, you've planned for things, but now it's not working out. That's where the fear comes in. You're like, well, I don't understand. I've always planned and things always worked out. So what do I do now? That is the ultimate test of faith or trust or, believing in the unseen or the unknown or whatever terminology you want to use there. That is the ultimate test there.
Yeah. I'm telling you guys, like, tuning into your spiritual connection this year, whether you're doing it in quiet, in nature, you're journaling to yourself, you are utilizing the strip DI or the embodied DI or the pings DI. There are so many different ways in, but that connection to self is going to be so huge. I guess the other thing that's kind of coming up that I want to share on that note as well, because we do get a lot of people who's like, I can't hear that version of self. I love utilizing the driver's seat DI or the inner child DI or the validation DI to talk to your protector part who's blocking you from hearing it. I would just sit there and be like, hey, you're basically in the way of me communicating with my like true essence or higher self. What's up? Why? Why are you so afraid? Why can't you like let me just be creative and talk to this other connection to self and just kind of work with those parts a little bit? Because usually it's like an inner child part that felt really scared having that connection to self. So see if you can work with it in that way too.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Okay. Thank you, Asya. This was so good. Seriously, one of my favorite episodes. I think it's so important for people right now. Like, listen to it again, come back to it again. I'm sure new downloads will come every time you listen, but such important work, and you're incredible at what you do.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you for having me again. It was an honor.
Of course. Where can people find you, connect with you, book a session, tune into everything you have to offer?
So you can go to my website, asyarose.com, spelled ASYAROSE.com. I'm on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok, although I very often forget to post on TikTok and YouTube. I'm primarily on Instagram at asyarose13, because 13 is my lucky number. But yeah, you can find me primarily on Instagram and on my website, and you can learn more about what I do and booking a session there.
So good. One of my favorite things to do with Asya is like quarterly, we'll do a dump of everything that's coming up. Like, okay, what's on the calendar in the next few months planetarily? And I go through and I'm like, okay, cool. This is where this is hitting me. This is where this is hitting me. And I get to really just have a roadmap, you know? And so many times, like, I'll be feeling an intense energy and I'll go back to our notes and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is exactly what Asya said. But at least I have that through line.
Yeah, well, I think it's helpful to know. I always say this, right? I'm like, it's like getting a weather report, right? It's helpful to know. You still have, with astrology, you still have free will, right? You still can make free will decisions, but you're getting a weather report so you know how to assert your free will, right? Like you know if it's going to rain outside tomorrow, whether you want to go outside in the rain or whether you want to stay indoors, but at least you know that the rain is going to show up. It's very different than if you just go outside and you're like walking around in flip-flops and all of a sudden there's a torrential downpour. You're like, oh, I didn't even check the weather. I wish I knew it was going to rain today. So you still have free will to decide what you do about the energetics that are going on in your chart, but there is something about understanding your cycle to know, am I fighting the current of what's happening or am I working with it so things are flowing easier?
So good. Thank you.
Thank you.
And good luck, everybody. You so got this. We got a big year coming up, but you're ready for it. I hope you guys enjoyed that episode today and why we have you. If you have another 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, we encourage you to pop into your TBM app and do a deep imagining. You are already in a hypnotic state. You've been listening to something. Maybe you've been listening and driving, listening and doing some house chores, listening and going for a walk. Put in that DI and get that subconscious reprogramming in. If you've listened to this episode today and you want a DI that's specifically suited for career, for money, for mindset, any of those things, hop into our DI playlist and I would go into the confidence boost. Really connect with your authenticity right now and figure out what is from that place. Or if you really want an immersive experience, I would check out the Channeling with Lacing portal and do the strip DI or the embodied DI. That embodied DI is going to be my reinforcing DI for the next couple weeks. So I hope you guys enjoy.